Sarah Lancaster had always lived her life in the shadows of unanswered questions. She spent her days juggling coffee cups and greasy plates at Rosie's Diner, a place where every conversation felt as stale as the day-old bread rolls. College was a far-off dream until an anonymous scholarship letter arrived in the mail complete with a full ride to one of the most prestigious universities in the country. At first, Sarah thought it was a cruel joke. Why would anyone give her such a gift? Little did she know that this mysterious scholarship was only the beginning of the biggest secret of her life. Sarah Lancaster grew up in the sleepy town of Millstone, Pennsylvania. It was the sort of place where everyone knew everyone, and rumors traveled faster than the only taxi service in town. Her mother, Emily Lancaster, worked part-time as a receptionist at the local medical clinic, while Sarah picked up shifts at Rosie's Diner. Sarah's senior year of high school was winding down, and she constantly wrestled with a dual sense of urgency and hopelessness. She wanted a future, a real future, that didn't involve refilling coffee cups for the same faces every day. But paying for college was a pipe dream. Her best friend, Tanya Hall, was about to go off to New York University with scholarships from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation because she'd excelled in math competitions. Each time Tanya received another acceptance letter or another scholarship confirmation, Sarah felt a tug of both pride and envy. One balmy afternoon, after the lunch rush had died down, Sarah was cleaning up after a group of boisterous truckers. Her manager, Jake Russo, ambled over. Jake was an ex-Marine with a buzz cut and forearms thick as tree trunks, but a heart unexpectedly soft for a man his size. "You got a letter in the back," Jake said, wiping a coffee stain off the counter. "Looks official gold crest or something." Confused, Sarah placed her tray on the counter and headed into the back office where employees stored their belongings. Sure enough, there was a cream-colored envelope with embossed lettering that read, "Harrington Foundation for Academic Excellence." It bore a Philadelphia return address. Sarah's heart hammered. She had never heard of the Harrington Foundation, though the Harrington name wasn't entirely unfamiliar. Michael Harrington, a rumored millionaire, was known across Pennsylvania for making generous donations to universities and hospitals. He had also once been linked to philanthropic events with big names like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. But what did he want with her? Brushing aside a wisp of her chestnut hair, Sarah tore open the envelope. A single glossy letter inside stated that she was awarded a full scholarship to attend the University of Pennsylvania, covering tuition room board and an additional stipend for books and expenses. At first, she laughed. She actually let out a short, incredulous bark of laughter that made Jake glance in from the doorway with a raised eyebrow. "Everything okay?" he asked. Sarah gave a non-committal shrug. "Some sort of scholarship from the Harrington Foundation," she murmured, scanning the letter again to see if it might be a scam. The details looked legitimate. There was a phone number and contact email for a woman named Ms. Caroline Warner, the Foundation's coordinator. The signature at the bottom of the letter was from Michael Harrington himself. Jake rubbed his jaw. "I know that Harrington guy. He sponsors the Veterans Hospital. He's the real deal. No joke." Sarah felt a small flicker of hope. "You think so?" Jake nodded. "If it says Harrington Foundation, I'd believe it. You should definitely call them. This might be the break you've been praying for. Kid." Shoving the letter into her apron pocket, Sarah returned to her shift. Her mind consumed by two battling emotions. Excitement that maybe this could change her life, and fear that it might be too good to be true. After her shift, she stopped by the post office and found a second letter from the Harrington Foundation waiting in her small mailbox. The second letter included information about the scholarship's origins. It was an anonymous nomination. The letter reiterated the scholarship offer in more concrete terms, a guaranteed 4-year ride with a possible extension if she pursued graduate studies. Sarah's head spun. Anonymous nomination. She barely had any connections that could nominate her for such a prestigious grant. She thought about teachers, guidance, counselors. None had mentioned anything of the sort. She went home and tossed her apron on the couch. Her mother was in the kitchen, balancing a checkbook with pursed lips. Emily Lancaster looked exhausted. New worry lines had appeared in recent months, ever since medical bills for Sarah's grandmother started rolling in. "Hey, Mom," Sarah said softly, clutching the letters in her hands. Emily glanced up. "Sweetheart, is something wrong?" Sarah forced a smile, feeling a twinge of guilt for the flicker of joy she felt, while her mother was so obviously stressed. "Got a scholarship to UPenn. Everything's paid for." At first, Emily's eyes welled with tears, and she jumped up and hugged Sarah. But as Emily scanned the letters, her smile began to waver. She cleared her throat, setting the letters down on the kitchen table. "It's unbelievable," Emily said, though her eyes carried a hint of worry, almost as if she recognized something Sarah didn't. "But, Harrington Foundation. You ever hear of them before?" "Just in the news," Sarah replied. "He's apparently this big, millionaire philanthropist. I don't really know why he'd pick me." "The letter says, someone nominated me." Emily's face turned pale, her fingers curling around the edge of the table. "Well," she said carefully, "maybe you should accept it. You've always wanted a chance to go to a top university." "This is a blessing, honey." Sarah grinned, relief washing over her. She ran upstairs, excitement buzzing in her chest. A secret corner of her mind was troubled by her mother's reaction, the abrupt pallor, the nervous quiver in her voice. But Sarah pushed those concerns aside. Right now, all she could think about was that her dream of going to college might finally become a reality. Little did she know that envelope contained far more than just a scholarship. It was the key to a hidden chapter of her own life, one that would unravel everything she thought she knew about her family, her past, and herself. A week later, Sarah was seated at the cramped dining table, with her mother going through the next steps for her scholarship acceptance. Warner, the coordinator from the Harrington Foundation, had scheduled a video call to discuss paperwork. The scholarship seemed genuine, yet something gnawed at Sarah's mind. Who nominated her, and why hadn't they come forward? As she waited for the call, Emily hovered in the background, pretending to clean the cabinets, though Sarah knew her mother's anxious eyes rarely left her. The laptop chimed, and Ms. Caroline Warner's face appeared on the screen. She was a woman in her early 40s, wearing a crisp grey suit, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. Behind her, a busy office environment bustled. "Hello, Ms. Lancaster," Ms. Warner said brightly. "Congratulations on your scholarship." "Thank you," Sarah replied. "I'm still a bit surprised, to be honest." Ms. Warner offered a reassuring smile. The Harrington Foundation invests in promising young students from all walks of life. "We believe you have remarkable potential." Sarah's mother cleared her throat softly, stepping into the frame. "I'm Emily Lancaster, Sarah's mother. We appreciate this opportunity so much. But if you don't mind me asking, can you share how Sarah came to be nominated?" Ms. Warner paused, her eyes flickering with a hint of hesitation. "We have a committee that reviews nominations from teachers, local community members, and sometimes philanthropic partners. Sarah's achievements at school, her consistent grades, her involvement in local volunteer projects, those definitely helped." Sarah recognized that Miss Warner was being vague. "So you're not at liberty to reveal who specifically nominated me?" Ms. Warner shook her head. "Some nominators prefer to remain anonymous." "It's nothing unusual. But rest assured, Ms. Lancaster, everything is in order. You'll have your place at the University of Pennsylvania, fully funded. You can focus on your future without the burden of finances." Sarah's chest felt light. I can't thank you enough." After Miss Warner ended the call, Sarah noticed her mother standing by the kitchen window, staring out at the street, lost in thought. Mum Sarah ventured, placing a hand gently on Emily's shoulder. "Are you okay?" Emily blinked, as though emerging from a trance. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just this is all happening so fast. I want you to be safe and happy. That's all." In bed that night, as Sarah stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars stuck to her ceiling, she wondered if her mother was hiding something. She tried to recall any moment from her childhood that might connect them to the Harrington name, but drew a blank. The only father figure Sarah had ever known was the occasional mention of a traveling musician her mother claimed to have dated years ago. But that relationship had ended before Sarah was even born. As far as Sarah knew, her biological father was a nameless, faceless figure who had never shown any interest in her life. Clutching her pillow, Sarah let her mind wander to the future. Dorm rooms, libraries, bustling college life. She envisioned studying political science, perhaps even law. She'd join clubs, attend campus events, maybe get an internship in Philadelphia. This scholarship was the door she had dreamed of knocking on for years. Yet her mother's haunted expression lingered. Sarah made a mental note to talk to Tanya, her best friend, about the scholarship. Tanya was rational and always had Sarah's back. If something was off, Tanya would sense it too. Unknown to Sarah that same night, Emily sat quietly at the kitchen table, the overhead light flickering. A single tear traced down her cheek as she pressed an old photograph to her chest. In the picture, a younger Emily stood beside a tall man with dark hair and a mesmerizing smile. They were both beaming at the camera. Tucked behind that photo was a more recent newspaper clipping featuring the same man, identified as Michael Harrington, giving a speech at a fundraiser. Emily whispered to herself, "I never thought you'd do this." "Michael, I never wanted you to do this." But the wheels had already been set in motion. The scholarship was only the beginning. The summer after graduation went by in a blur. At Rosie's Diner, Sarah endured a few more weeks of double shifts, saving up money for incidentals that might come up when she moved to Philadelphia. Jake, her manager, threw a small farewell party on her last day. Balloons, cheap cake, and a sign that read, "Good luck at college." Sarah Tanya popped in, just before closing, wearing her usual bright smile. "I can't believe it. My best friend is going off to an Ivy League. You better still text me every day, or I swear I'll show up at your dorm." Sarah laughed. "You'll be at NYU. We'll be close enough to visit each other. We can figure out the trains and everything." After hugging Tanya goodbye, Sarah tidied her locker one last time. She pulled out her name badge, Sarah at your service, and tucked it into her bag, determined to keep it as a reminder of where she started. Outside, the sun was dipping below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the parking lot. Sarah spotted her mother's beat-up Honda. Emily sat behind the wheel, eyes distant, ready. Emily asked softly. Sarah tossed her backpack into the back seat. "As I'll ever be." They drove home in silence, the hum of the engine filling the heavy air. On the kitchen table sat a small stack of boxes for Sarah's dorm essentials. She had microwavable dishes, a new set of sheets and a laptop bag. The Harrington Foundation had already taken care of her tuition payments, and Mills, Warner had emailed her a housing assignment in a freshman dorm. Everything felt surreal, like it was happening to somebody else. That night, Emily insisted on making Sarah's favorite dinner, spaghetti and meatballs, over the meal. Sarah couldn't contain her curiosity any longer. "Mom, this scholarship," she began. "You haven't told me if you have any clue who nominated me." Emily's fork froze mid-twirl. She forced a smile. "I'm just happy you're going to get a chance." "Baby," Sarah set her fork down, "but you're acting strange. Shouldn't you be over the moon?" Emily sighed. "I am, sweetie, it's just... sometimes blessings come with complications." "What complications?" The lines around Emily's eyes deepened. "Never mind. It's nothing you need to worry about now. You just focus on your education." Realizing she wouldn't get more out of her mother tonight, Sarah dropped the subject. But the hint of mystery left a gnawing sensation in her chest. She pushed it aside, reminding herself that by this time tomorrow she would be on campus, meeting new people and setting up her dorm. The next morning, as they loaded the Honda with Sarah's belongings, a swirl of emotions took hold of them. Both Emily seemed reluctant to let her only child go, while Sarah felt that youthful push toward independence. Halfway to Philadelphia, Sarah dozed off, lulled by the car's rhythmic vibrations. When she woke, they were passing by towering buildings and busy streets. The University of Pennsylvania campus soon came into view, a sprawl of historic red brick buildings and modern facilities. "It's beautiful," Sarah whispered, a smile creeping across her face. Emily forced a shaky grin, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you." Finding a parking spot near the freshman dorm, they hauled Sarah's boxes up 3 flights of stairs, meeting wide-eyed new students and harried parents along the way. Her room was small but cozy, with a single bed, a desk, and a window overlooking a courtyard. As they finished making the bed, Emily handed Sarah an envelope for emergencies. She said, "It's not much," but Sarah hugged her mother tightly. "Thank you for everything." Mum Emily clung to her a moment longer. "I love you, sweetheart. You call me if you need anything at all." After her mother left, Sarah sat on the edge of her new bed, overwhelmed by a mix of excitement and homesickness. She decided to take a short walk around campus. Strolling across manicured lawns and ivy-covered walls, she felt the palpable energy of possibility. Students milled about, some carrying boxes, some walking in groups, laughing and chattering. Suddenly her phone buzzed with an incoming call. Unknown number. She hesitated before pressing the answer button. Hello, Miss Lancaster. It's Caroline Warner from the Harrington Foundation. I wanted to welcome you to campus and let you know that Mr. Harrington will be in Philadelphia next week. He'd like to schedule a brief meeting if you're available." Sarah's heart skipped. "Mr. Harrington, Michael. Harrington himself wants to meet me." "Yes," Ms. Warner confirmed. "Nothing formal, just a quick conversation about your goals and how the foundation can further support you." Sarah swallowed hard. The mysterious benefactor who awarded her the scholarship. Perhaps she'd finally get answers to her questions. "I'm free whenever he needs me to be excellent. I'll be in touch with the details," Ms. Warner said, her tone polite but brisk. "Have a wonderful first week, Ms. Lancaster." The call ended, leaving Sarah standing in the middle of the quad, her phone clutched in her hand. Her heart pounded with anticipation and nerves. Finally, she might learn something tangible about the scholarship's origins. Little did she know this upcoming meeting would shake the very foundation of her life. The first few days of orientation were a whirlwind of new faces, informational sessions and name tags. Sarah found herself somewhat starstruck by the academic energy around her. Everyone seemed so confident, so sure of their path. She attended a welcome seminar for incoming scholarship recipients, meeting students from different programs. Some were from the Harrington Foundation, others from various philanthropic organizations. In that crowd, Sarah noticed a tall boy with neatly combed hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He introduced himself as Ryan Cobb, a political science major who had also received a Harrington Foundation scholarship. They sat together quickly, bonding over the surreal nature of being plucked from their small hometowns by a mysterious scholarship. "I'm from a rural corner of Ohio," Ryan explained, sipping from a paper cup of coffee. "I never imagined I'd get into UPenn, let alone with a full scholarship. But apparently, my local congressman recommended me after seeing my debate competition. Record." "What about you?" Sarah shrugged. "I have no idea who nominated me. All I know is that it's from Harrington. I'll be meeting him soon." Hopefully, Ryan raised an eyebrow, looking impressed. Michael Harrington, personally. He's a big deal in philanthropic circles. My dad said he's done collaborations with Bill Gates and the Clinton Foundation. Let me know how it goes. They exchanged phone numbers, promising to keep in touch. Sarah felt a small surge of relief. At least she had someone on campus who understood the strangeness of this scholarship situation. Later that evening, Sarah scrolled through her phone to find her mother's texts. "Mum, hi, sweetie. Hope you're settling in. I miss you already. Call me later if you can." She tapped out a quick reply, promising to call after dinner. She was about to slip her phone into her bag when it buzzed again. This time, it was Tanya. Tanya, OMG. "How's Ivy Life? They feeding you caviar for breakfast?" Sarah giggled, typing back, "Sarah, it's fancy, but not that fancy. Still, it's amazing here. I can't believe this is my life." Despite the wonder of her new environment, Sarah couldn't fully shake off the sense of mystery swirling around her scholarship. It kept her up at night, replaying the conversation with Ms. Warner in her head. She had never met Michael Harrington, never even heard her mother speak his name. Yet he was about to become one of the most influential people in her life. That same night, Sarah gathered her courage and called her mother. The conversation started with typical pleasantries, how the dorm was, whether she liked her classes, if she'd found the dining hall. Then Sarah ventured into trickier territory. "Mom, next week I'll be meeting Michael Harrington. Apparently, he's the one who personally authorized my scholarship silence." On the other end, finally, Emily spoke, in a low, measured tone. "Sarah, just be polite and thank him for his generosity. Don't pry into his personal reasons. Some donors prefer anonymity." Sarah frowned. "Why wouldn't they want me to know who nominated me, though? Isn't that weird?" Emily exhaled softly. "Not necessarily. People with a lot of money sometimes have complicated reasons for their actions. Just be careful." "Okay." Sarah blinked, confused. "Careful of what? Just trust me on this," Emily murmured. "You'll understand someday." They hung up soon after leaving Sarah's questions hanging in the air. What did her mother mean by, "You'll understand someday"? Was there some hidden connection between Emily and Michael Harrington? The thought stuck to her mind like glue. Classes began the following Monday. Sarah attended her first lecture in a grand hall with a vaulted ceiling. The professor spoke passionately about American history, and Sarah scribbled notes in a brand-new notebook. Despite the academic thrill, her mind drifted to the upcoming meeting. Each time she felt the flutter of nerves, she reminded herself that her presence here was a testament to someone's belief in her potential, even if she didn't fully understand who or why. That Monday night, as Sarah hunched over her desk, reading through assigned chapters, she received an email from Mrs. Warner. The subject line read, "Meeting with Mr. Harrington. Final details." The body of the email stated that Michael Harrington would meet her for lunch on Friday at an upscale restaurant near campus called the Silver Fork. Sarah's throat went dry. She was just a small-town girl, uncertain of how to navigate a lunch at a fancy restaurant with a millionaire. She quickly texted Tanya for moral support. Tanya always, the jokester, replied, "Tanya, just pretend you're still waitressing, but this time you're the guest. Also maybe watch a YouTube tutorial on fine dining etiquette." Sarah managed a laugh, though nerves twisted her stomach. Her mind raced what to wear, how to act, what questions to ask or avoid. And beneath it all, the lingering question, what if this man was more than just a random benefactor? Friday arrived faster than Sarah would have liked. She borrowed a conservative dress from a new friend on her floor. A business major named Celia, gazing at her reflection in the dorm mirror, Sarah hardly recognized herself. She wore subtle makeup and had pinned her hair back in a neat bun, trying to appear poised. She walked to the Silver Fork, sweat gathering under her arms despite the cool autumn breeze. The restaurant exuded an air of quiet luxury, white tablecloths, softly tinkling piano music, and waitstaff gliding gracefully between tables. Sarah approached the hostess, clearing her throat awkwardly. "I have a reservation. Meeting Michael Harrington," she said, voice trembling slightly. The hostess's eyes flickered with recognition. "Right this way." Miss Lancaster, Sarah's pulse hammered as she followed the hostess through the dining area. At a corner table sat a man in his early 50s with striking grey streaks in his otherwise dark hair, wearing a tailored navy suit. His posture was confident, yet relaxed, the posture of someone accustomed to control. He rose to greet her. His voice, a smooth baritone, carried warmth. "Sarah Lancaster, I'm Michael Harrington. Pleased to meet you." Sarah swallowed. "Thank you so much for this opportunity. Mr. Harrington, I'm really grateful." He waved off her thanks, gesturing for her to sit. "Please call me Michael, and the scholarship is well deserved. Believe me." She settled into the plush chair, taking in every detail, the faint lines around his eyes, the tasteful cufflinks bearing the Harrington Foundation insignia. He looked both approachable and formidable. As the waiter poured water, Michael asked about her first week of classes, her dorm, her favorite orientation events. He seemed genuinely interested, nodding attentively at her responses. Eventually, the conversation turned to the scholarship itself. Sarah mustered her courage. "I hope you don't mind, but I'm curious who nominated me." Ms. Warner said it was anonymous, but it's a big mystery in my life. Michael's dark eyes flickered for the briefest moment, a ripple of emotion crossing his face. "I'm afraid I can't provide specifics." The scholarship committee receives recommendations from a variety of sources: teachers, community leaders, even philanthropic partners. Sarah felt a pang of disappointment. "I see. Well, whoever it was, I owe them a great deal." Michael laced his fingers together, leaning forward slightly. "Focus on your studies. That's the best way to repay the faith we've placed in you." Something in his tone made Sarah study him more closely. Was there a flicker of guilt behind his eyes? Or was she imagining it? Their entrees arrived, and Sarah tried to maintain calm as she navigated the fine dining etiquette. Michael made small talk about campus life, his own time at Princeton, and how he'd built his fortune in venture capital before focusing on philanthropy. "I've had the privilege to work with Bill Gates on certain education initiatives," he said, casually eliciting an awed nod from Sarah. "But enough about me. You must have big goals. Care to share? Sarah hesitated, pressing her napkin to her lips. I think I might major in political science with maybe a minor in international relations. I want to make a difference. Maybe work in diplomacy or public policy. Michael's face lit up. That's admirable. We need more compassionate voices in politics. Despite his outward warmth, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that Michael was holding back. Each time she came close to asking a personal question, he pivoted the conversation. By the time the waiter cleared their plates, Sarah's curiosity still simmered. They ended the meal with coffee. Michael explained a bit about the foundation's structure and assured Sarah she could reach out if she needed anything: housing issues, academic guidance, even personal troubles. The Harrington Foundation prided itself on mentoring. You remind me of someone I once knew, Michael said softly, eyes distant for a second. Really? Sarah ventured, feeling a chill run through her. Michael glanced at his watch, abruptly standing. Just an old friend. But we should wrap up. I have another meeting downtown. He placed a leather folder on the table, along with a tip for the waiter. Sarah began to stand as well, but Michael gently touched her shoulder. Sarah, if there's anything you need, anything at all, don't hesitate to contact Miss Warner or me directly. We want you to succeed, okay? His gaze held an intensity that made her heart pound. I will, she managed to say. Then he was gone, leaving a swirl of cologne in his wake. Sarah sat down, trying to steady her nerves. She felt simultaneously grateful for his kindness and uneasy about his secrecy. On her way out, she stopped by the restroom to splash water on her face. She barely recognized the girl in the mirror, the small-town waitress who had just finished an expensive lunch with a millionaire. Yet a nagging thought refused to leave her. Why did he look at her as if he knew her? Why did he say she reminded him of someone he once knew? The questions she had before the meeting were nowhere near answered. If anything, they had multiplied. Outside the restaurant, a cold gust of wind made her shiver. She wrapped her arms around herself, ignoring the curious glances of passers-by, and started her walk back to campus. Part of her was elated. He had been gracious, supportive, everything a benefactor should be. Another part was unsettled. Something deeper was at play, and she couldn't quite place it. That weekend, Sarah tried to focus on her homework, but her mind kept returning to Michael Harrington. She found herself Googling him, late at night, sifting through news articles, business profiles, philanthropic announcements. There were countless references to his wealth, his charitable work, his networking events with high-profile figures. Photos showed him smiling with Bill Gates at a forum, shaking hands with Warren Buffett at a gala. But nowhere did she find mention of a family, no mention of a wife or children. He appeared to be a lone wolf, though rumors speculated he kept relationships private. Sunday morning, Sarah called her mum to recount the meeting. Emily listened in heavy silence. He was so nice, Mum. But I still have no clue who nominated me or why. He wouldn't say, Sarah said, pacing around her dorm room. Emily's voice was tight. Sarah, trust that there's a reason for everything. Sometimes people can't reveal themselves, no matter how much they want. To Sarah felt a surge of frustration. Mom, you keep talking in riddles. If you know something, anything, tell me. A pause crackled over the line. I really can't, sweetheart. I'm sorry. Sarah clenched her fist, tears burning at her eyes. Fine, I'll figure it out myself. She hung up, anger and confusion swirling inside her. She spent the rest of the day in a haze, ignoring texts from Tanya and skipping dinner at the dining hall. Late that night, she decided to confide in Ryan Cobb. They met up at a small coffee shop on campus that stayed open late. Ryan wore a pen sweatshirt, hair mussed from studying. "You seem stressed," he commented, offering a sympathetic smile. Sarah sank into the chair opposite him. "You have no idea." She told him about her meeting with Michael Harrington, about his cryptic comments, and how her mother seemed to know more than she was saying. Ryan listened carefully, tapping a pen against his notebook. "It's definitely odd," he said, "but it might not be anything shady. Maybe your mum once dated someone connected to Harrington's circle." Sarah's heart pounded. The mention of her mother's possible past relationships struck a chord. Emily had always sidestepped questions about Sarah's father. Could Michael Harrington be? "No," Sarah said, shaking her head, though the idea refused to budge. "That's crazy. He would have said something right." Ryan shrugged. "If it's some complicated family secret, maybe he wouldn't. The wealthy are known for being private." Sarah stared at her coffee cup, her mind reeling. The notion felt both absurd and terrifying. How could Michael Harrington, the millionaire philanthropist, be her father? There was zero proof, just a swirl of speculation based on her mother's cagey behavior and Harrington's intense demeanor. She parted ways with Ryan, thanking him for the talk, though her thoughts remained a jumbled mess. Returning to her dorm, she tossed and turned in bed. Her memories flashed to times she asked her mother about her father and received only vague answers. He was a musician. He was gone before you were born. He wasn't the kind of man who wanted a family. Could it all have been lies or half-truths to protect her from something? The following week, Sarah plunged deeper into her classes, partly to escape her tangled emotions. But the scholarship's shadow loomed over everything. Whenever she checked her email, she half expected another message from Ms. Warner, or a meeting request from Michael. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging political science lecture, Sarah stepped out of the building and found Ms. Warner waiting on a bench, looking like a sentinel from the Harrington Foundation. "Ms. Warner." Sarah said, cautious, "What are you doing here?" "Caroline?" Warner stood smoothing her pencil skirt. "I was in the area. I wanted to see how your transition is going. Mr. Harrington asked me to keep tabs. Make sure you have everything you need." Sarah's suspicion flared. "I'm fine. Classes are tough, but I'm managing Miss Warner." Smiled. "Glad to hear it. Let me know if there's any support you need. Tutoring, mental health services. The foundation has resources. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind." As Ms. Warner turned to leave, Sarah couldn't hold back any longer. "Wait." Ms. Warner paused, glancing back. "Yes," Sarah took a breath. "Is there any chance Mr. Harrington is my father?" The question hung in the air like a thunderbolt. Ms. Warner's composed facade cracked. She recovered quickly, schooling her features into a neutral expression. Why would you ask that?" Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Just a hunch. My mother is acting weird, and Mr. Harrington, well, he looks at me like he knows me. But it's probably just my imagination." Ms. Warner chewed her lower lip, glancing away. "Sarah, that's not something I have the authority to discuss. All I can say is that your scholarship is legitimate, and we're happy to support you. Please focus on your studies." And with that, she walked away, leaving Sarah trembling. Her chest tightened, a swirl of fear and hope. Ms. Warner hadn't denied it outright, at least not in a convincing way. Sarah trudged back to her dorm, dropping her backpack on her bed. Without hesitation, she grabbed her phone and dialed her mother. Emily answered on the second ring. "Sarah, is everything okay? You usually text before calling." Sarah's voice shook. "Are you going to tell me the truth, or am I going to have to figure it out on my own? Is Michael Harrington my father? Emily was silent so long that Sarah thought the line went dead. Then her mother sobbed quietly, a choked sound that sent shivers through Sarah's spine. "Oh, sweetheart," Emily finally whispered. "I never wanted you to find out this way." I wanted to protect you." Sarah sank onto the floor, tears hot in her eyes. "It's true then, yes," Emily said brokenly. "Michael Harrington is your father." Sarah felt her entire world tilt. Her hand clutched the phone as if it were a lifeline, but the shock threatened to drown her. "Why would you hide this from me? Why would he hide it from me?" Emily sniffled. "We made a decision before you were born. We agreed that he wasn't ready to be a father, and I didn't want to complicate things. I believed I could raise you on my own, but it seems he's changed his mind about being in your life. At least financially." Sarah's thoughts spiraled. "Does he even care about me? Or is this just guilt money?" "I don't know." "Honey," Emily said, voice tremulous. "I really don't. But please don't be too hard on him or on me. We thought we were doing what was best." Unable to handle more, Sarah whispered, "I have to go," and ended the call. She curled up on the cold dorm floor, tears streaming down her cheeks, her world in tatters. For 18 years, she'd grown up believing her father was either non-existent or uninterested. Now she learned he was not only alive, but a millionaire who had orchestrated her scholarship, all without saying a word to her. She felt betrayed, confused, and heartbreakingly alone. Word spread around campus quickly that Sarah Lancaster, the unassuming freshman on a Harrington scholarship, was rumored to be connected to Michael Harrington himself. Gossip circulated among scholarship recipients, and even some staff. Sarah found herself the target of hushed whispers and curious stares. She tried to ignore it, burying her head in textbooks and group assignments, but she could feel the tension in every lecture hall corridor she walked. Ryan found her in the library one evening, hunched over a laptop. "I heard some rumors," he said, gently settling into the chair beside her. "Are you okay?" Sarah shook her head, tears threatening. She dragged him to a quiet corner, away from prying ears. There she poured out the story in hushed tones. Ryan's eyes widened. "So, Harrington is your dad?" She nodded, biting her lip. "I didn't even know until last night. My mother confirmed it." Ryan set a hand on her shoulder. "That's huge. Are you going to confront him?" A storm brewed in Sarah's eyes. "I don't know. I feel so angry. He's been out there, living his billionaire life, while Mum and I struggled to pay rent, while I waited tables at Rosie's diner. And only now, when I'm about to go to college, does he swoop in with this scholarship like money can fix everything?" Ryan squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. Maybe he's trying to make amends in the only way he knows how. Wealthy people sometimes see money as a solution to everything. Sarah sighed, exhaustion tugging at her. "I just wish he'd told me before, awarding me some anonymous scholarship. It feels manipulative." They talked for an hour until the library announced closing. Afterwards, Sarah returned to her dorm room, more certain than ever that she needed to confront Michael Harrington face to face. The next morning, she fired off an email to Miss Warner. Subject: urgent meeting request with Mr. Harrington. "Miss Warner, I've recently come to know that Michael Harrington is my biological father. I would appreciate the chance to speak with him privately. Please let me know when this can be arranged. Sincerely, Sarah Lancaster." She didn't mince words. If he wanted to keep secrets, that was over now. 2 days passed with no response. Sarah's anxiety soared. She vacillated between anger and a strange longing for a father she never had. Part of her wanted to demand answers. Another part wanted to run back to her mother's arms. Wishing none of this was real, on the third day, Miss Warner responded. Subject urgent. Meeting request with Mr. Harrington. Dear Miss Lancaster. I understand your concern. Mr. Harrington is currently out of the country on business. However, he has agreed to meet you upon his return next week. I will be in contact regarding the specific time and place. Best regards, Caroline Warner. Sarah's heart pounded. Next week, she had to live with this tension a bit longer. In the meantime, her classes wouldn't slow down for her personal crisis. Professors kept piling on readings and papers, and group projects demanded her time. Every day, she struggled to maintain a semblance of normality. At night, her dreams were restless. She'd picture Michael Harrington standing at the end of a long hallway, face shadowed, calling her name. She'd run toward him, but the hallway kept elongating, and she could never quite reach him. Her mother tried calling multiple times, leaving voicemails. Sarah listened to. Each one, tears in her eyes, but never called back. She wasn't ready to forgive Emily for the years of deception. By the end of that week, Miss Warner emailed again, instructing Sarah to meet at a private office space downtown. Sarah borrowed a friend's car to drive there, her stomach churning with nerves. The office building was a sleek, glassy tower in downtown Philadelphia. Sarah took the elevator to the 19th floor, heart thudding like a drum. A polished receptionist led her to a conference room. Inside, Ms. Warner waited with her usual composed smile, but Sarah barely spared her a glance. Her attention was on Michael Harrington, standing by the window arms folded across his chest. When she stepped in, he turned the corners of his eyes, lined with worry. Sarah, she closed the door behind her with a trembling hand. So you are my father. He exhaled, glancing at Miss Warner. Caroline, could you give us the room, please? Miss Warner left quietly. Sarah stood across from Michael, the tension thick as fog. Finally he spoke. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. You're sorry. That's all you have to say. He ran a hand through his hair, looking every bit as conflicted as she felt. Sarah, I knew your mother when we were both very young. I wasn't ready to be a father. We agreed. I never thought you'd want me in your life, but as you grew older, I wanted to at least give you something to help you succeed. She let out a bitter laugh. So you decided to make me your charitable cause. Why couldn't you come forward, talk to me like a human being? His face hardened, but not in anger. More like self-protection. Because I was afraid you'd resent me. And I deserve that resentment, I won't deny it. The air felt charged with all the hurt she'd bottled up for years. My mother and I struggled, you know. We barely had enough for rent some months. I waitressed because that was the only way I could see paying for college. And where were you? He blinked, pain flickering in his eyes. I sent money to your mother. She returned every check, never cashed them. She made it clear she didn't want my involvement. Sarah's jaw dropped. Her mother had never told her that. The resentment she'd harbored for Michael now swirled in confusion. But that's not the point. You knew how to find me, if you really wanted to. You're a powerful man. He rubbed his temples. I know you have every right to be angry. But I thought I was honoring your mother's wishes, giving you a chance to grow up without the complications my world might impose on you. And then I saw you applying for scholarships, read about your achievements. I had to help. Sarah's tears spilled over. I don't know you at all. And yet you're my father. How am I supposed to just accept that. He gently took a step closer, hands raised as if he wanted to console her but didn't dare. You don't have to accept it, but I'd like a chance to get to know you if you'll let me. She shook her head, anger and sadness roiling. Do you think money makes up for nearly 2 decades of absence? No, he answered, voice raw. It doesn't. Nothing does. She wanted to scream, to beat her fists against his chest, to demand an explanation that would make sense of it all, but she could see the genuine remorse in his eyes, and it took the fight out of her. Why now, she whispered, voice trembling. Why not tell me sooner? Michael sighed. I learned recently that your mother was struggling again. Your grandmother's medical bills. Your tuition. Hopes I asked Emily if I could step in. She refused my direct involvement. The scholarship was the compromise I wasn't expecting you to find out about me so soon. Maybe that was naive. Sarah's breath hitched. She recalled her mother's sad eyes whenever they talked about finances. A wave of guilt washed over her, mixed with the heartbreak. They stood there for a long moment, neither speaking. The city skyline loomed through the window behind him, as if the entire world held its breath. Finally, Sarah managed. I need time. This is too much. Michael gave a solemn nod. Take all the time you need. I'll respect your space, but please know that I'm here if you ever want to talk. If you ever need anything. She turned, tears blurring her vision as she reached for the door. Before stepping out, she paused, glancing back. It's not just me. Mum's in pain too. You should have fought harder for both of us. With that, she left, passing by Ms. Warner's concerned gaze without a word. She made her way down to the lobby, tears sliding down her cheeks. Everything felt unreal, like she was starring in someone else's life. Outside the city buzzed with midday traffic. Taxis honked, pedestrians hurried, oblivious to her internal turmoil. Sarah stood on the sidewalk, uncertain of where to go, who to turn to. She was 18 years old, with a secret father who was richer than she ever imagined, and a mother who had lied to her, albeit to protect her. One thing was certain, the life she'd known in Millston was gone. In its place, a new world stretched out before her, full of promise, betrayal and complicated truths. In the days following her confrontation with Michael, Sarah wrestled with conflicting emotions. Anger simmered, but so did curiosity. She replayed every moment of their meeting in her mind. His regret seemed genuine. Had he truly tried to send money all those years only for her mother to return it? And what about the role her mother played in all of this? She decided it was time to talk to Emily again, properly. One Saturday morning, Sarah took the train back to Millston, arriving unannounced at the small house she'd grown up in. Emily answered the door, eyes filled with both worry and relief. Sarah. Oh, honey. Sarah stepped inside, noticing how the living room felt smaller now that she'd experienced city life. They stood awkwardly for a few seconds, until Sarah sank into the old worn couch. Her mother joined her, tentatively placing a hand over Sarah's. I'm so sorry, Emily whispered. Sarah stared at the floor. He told me you returned the checks he sent. Emily sighed, tears forming. I did. When you were a baby, I told him we didn't need his money. Part of me was angry that he'd only offer financial help, not emotional support. Later, as you grew, I was determined to show that I could do it on my own. I never wanted you to feel unwanted by your father. So I told you he wasn't around, because he was... Well, I lied. Sarah swallowed hard. What happened between you two? Exactly. Emily blinked back tears, gazing at the framed photo of Sarah on the mantel. I met Michael when I was barely out of college. He was brilliant, ambitious, and we fell in love quickly, but he was also restless. When I got pregnant, he wasn't ready to settle down. We had these terrible fights. I didn't want you to grow up amid chaos, so I left. He agreed to let me raise you alone, but he promised to stay away unless I needed him. He tried sending money, but I sent it back every time. It was my pride, and maybe my stubbornness too. Over the years, we both got used to the arrangement. Sarah listened, tears pooling in her eyes. And you thought that was best for me? Emily's voice cracked. I did. Maybe I was wrong. But he wasn't the Michael you met now. He's grown into a different man, or so it seems. Sarah shut her eyes, absorbing her mother's words. She felt a complex swirl of sympathy, anger and understanding. Why didn't either of you tell me once I was old enough to handle the truth? I wanted to. Many times, Emily admitted, but every time I looked at you, I saw a bright, happy girl. I didn't want to ruin that. The older you got, the more the lie weighed on me. And then you were talking about scholarships, your big dreams, and I knew I couldn't afford them. When Michael found out, he insisted on helping, but I refused to let him tell you who he was. I figured you'd accept the scholarship, if you didn't know. I'm sorry, I was just trying to protect you. Sarah took a shaky breath, gazing into Emily's tear-streaked face. She could see the agony in her mother's eyes, the remorse for what might have been. In that moment, she realized that while their choices had hurt her, they had come from a place of misguided love. I'm angry, Sarah admitted, voice quivering. But I still love you, Mum. I just need time to process this. Emily hugged her, sobbing into her shoulder. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'm here for you always. They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, crying, sharing old memories. Emily pulled out some photographs from her younger days, grainy snapshots showing her and a much younger Michael arms draped around each other in carefree joy. The images felt surreal to Sarah, proof of a life she never knew existed. That night, Sarah slept in her old bedroom with glow-in-the-dark stars still plastered to the ceiling. She realized she might never fully reconcile the past, but for now, she had at least heard the truth from both sides, and it gave her a strange sense of relief. Upon returning to campus, Sarah discovered an envelope slipped under her dorm door. It was from Miss Warner, containing a handwritten note from Michael. Sarah, I'm deeply sorry for the pain I've caused you. If you'll allow it, I'd like to meet again. No pressure. Just let Caroline know if you're open to it. Michael. She stared at the note for a long time. Part of her wanted to tear it up in anger. Another part ached with the longing for a father she never had. That evening, after pacing around her dorm room, she texted Miss Warner, "Thank you for the note. I'm willing to meet Mr. Harrington again. Please let me know when." The following week, Miss Warner arranged a meeting at a cafe on campus, more casual, less intimidating. Sarah arrived, feeling tense but determined. Michael was already there, seated at a small table near the window, his expression a mixture of nerves and hope. She sat down, not bothering with formalities. I talked to Mum. She told me everything. Michael nodded slowly. I'm glad I never wanted her to shoulder the blame alone. Sarah's heart pounded. So, where do we go from here? He leaned forward, hands clasped. Wherever you want, I won't force anything. If you want a relationship, I'm here. If you need space, I'll give it to you. I just want to be honest with you going forward. She studied him, noting how tired he looked as if the weight of his guilt had pressed down for years. "I'm still angry," she said plainly, "but I want answers. I want to know who you really are, and I want you to know who I am. Maybe we can try." His face lit with a tentative smile. "I'd like that." They chatted over coffee, the conversation awkward but genuine. He asked about her classes, her new friends, and her aspirations. She pressed him about his business, his philanthropic goals, and how he envisioned her fitting into his life, if at all. He admitted he had no easy answers. "I'm not going to pretend I can make up for all those lost years, but I'd like to help you in any way. You'll let me. I know finances may not be everything, but if you need academic resources or if you want to travel abroad, I can support that. More importantly, I'd like to be there for you emotionally, if you'll let me." By the end of the conversation, Sarah felt drained, but strangely hopeful. They agreed to stay in contact, exchanging personal phone numbers this time. No more going through Miss Warner. Over the following weeks, Michael texted her on occasion, sharing articles he thought she might find interesting, or simply asking how her day went. Sarah, initially hesitant, found herself replying, sometimes even asking for advice. Step by step, they built a fragile rapport. Meanwhile, Emily and Sarah's relationship inched toward repair. Sarah visited home more often, each time a little less weighed down by anger. She knew healing wouldn't happen overnight, but the truth was out, and that was a start. The rest of the semester flew by. Sarah devoted herself to her studies, occasionally meeting Michael for lunch or dinner, always in low-key settings. They talked about books, movies, her plans for summer internships. He never pushed her, never pried. That gave Sarah the space to come to terms with this new reality at her own pace. As finals approached, Sarah found herself oddly grateful for the scholarship. Yes, it had come wrapped in secrets, but it also opened doors she never imagined. And now it was starting to mend the broken ties of her family. That December, Michael invited Sarah and Emily to spend Christmas at his estate in the outskirts of Philadelphia. The invitation was both gracious and daunting. Emily, hesitant at first, ultimately agreed when Sarah said she wanted them all to spend the holiday together to see if real healing was possible. When Sarah and Emily arrived at the mansion, they were awestruck by the lavish decorations and the grand foyer lit by a crystal chandelier. A soaring Christmas tree stood in the living room, adorned with ornaments that glittered in the warm light. Michael greeted them, clearly nervous, but his eyes brimmed with sincerity. "Welcome," he said softly, ushering them inside. Over the next few days, Emily and Michael had long private talks, while Sarah roamed the mansion's extensive library, occasionally messaging Tanya, pictures of the opulent surroundings. Tanya's replies ranged from "OMG" to "bring me back a golden spoon." On Christmas Eve, the three of them sat around a roaring fireplace, sipping hot chocolate. The tension that once defined their relationships was replaced by a cautious warmth. Michael reached under the tree and retrieved 2 carefully wrapped boxes. Handing them to Sarah and Emily, he explained, "These aren't exactly Christmas gifts, but I'd like you to have them." Sarah opened her box, revealing a stack of letters, some old and yellowed, others more recent. She skimmed the top one, dated 18 years ago, shortly after she was born. It was addressed to Emily from Michael, stating he was torn about giving up his parental rights, but didn't want to jeopardize Emily's happiness or the child's future. More letters followed, scattered across the years, all returned unopened. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. Emily clutched her own stack of letters. Likewise returned, never read. She pressed a shaky hand to her mouth. "Michael, I had no idea you wrote so often." He bowed his head. "I tried, but you made your stance clear. I respected it, even if it hurt." Sarah flipped through the letters, each brimming with regret, longing, or updates on Michael's changing life. She realized with a jolt of sadness that while he might have been absent, he had at least thought of her often. Emily set her letters aside, tears slipping down her cheeks. "We can't change the past," she whispered, "but maybe we can try to be a family in some way now." Michael's voice was thick with emotion. "That's all I've ever wanted." They talked late into the night, forging a tentative plan for the future. Michael promised to be more present in Sarah's life, not just financially, but by attending events. She cared about meeting her friends and opening his home if she ever needed a break from campus life. Emily agreed to let go of her resentments, acknowledging she too had made choices that kept Michael away. For Sarah, it felt surreal, like the final puzzle piece had been placed, but the picture was only now beginning to come into focus. A father and mother, both flawed, both loving in their own convoluted ways, attempting to bridge nearly 2 decades of separation. By the time Sarah returned to campus for the spring semester, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She carried the weight of her family's complex history, but it no longer felt like a burden. Instead, it felt like a testament to resilience and the possibility of second chances. Michael called her weekly sometimes, just to share a tidbit about his day, sometimes to ask how her studies were going. Emily and Sarah's relationship grew closer than ever as they shed the lies that once separated them. One bright afternoon, Sarah found herself reflecting on how dramatically her life had changed. She had a father figure now, an unlikely millionaire philanthropist who was learning step by cautious step how to be part of her life. She had a mother who'd loved her fiercely enough to raise her alone despite financial hardship, even if her decisions weren't always right. As for Sarah herself, she wasn't just a small-town waitress anymore. She was a college student on a full scholarship, forging a path in political science, determined to create a future where she could help others in similar circumstances. Did the pain of their past vanish? No. There were still moments of anger, nights of sadness, when she mourned the years lost. But with every new conversation, every glimpse of hope, Sarah realized that love, complicated, imperfect love, could still grow where scars once lay. Standing on the campus lawn, watching the bustle of students heading to class, Sarah felt a hint of a smile lift her lips. The future was wide open, and she intended to seize it. Her father might be a millionaire, but she was her own person, fueled by the resilience she'd gained from her struggles. In the end, the waitress got a scholarship out of nowhere. Then learned the millionaire behind it was her dad wasn't just a sensational headline. It was her life, and though it began in secrecy and pain, the next chapter was filled with hope, second chances, and the promise of a new tomorrow. Thank you for journeying through the poignant story of Sarah Lancaster, a waitress whose world turned upside down when an unexpected scholarship led her to discover her secret millionaire father. We followed her struggle with identity, her clash of emotions, and her ultimate path toward forgiveness and hope. Sarah's story reminds us that sometimes the biggest twists in life can spark profound growth, and even broken families can find healing if they're willing to face hard truths. If you found yourself touched by Sarah's bravery or inspired by her determination, please consider supporting this story by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. Your engagement helps us bring more stories to life, tales that blend drama, inspiration, and the resilience of the human spirit. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to ring the notification bell for future uploads. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.